Hello, I'm David Greentree, and today I want to talk about Jesus before Pilate, and particularly actually Pilate and the crowds interacting as we learn it in Mark's Gospel. And if you're wondering why I suddenly want to do that, it's because, well, don't laugh, but I've been trying to get my Greek up to speed again, and one of the things I've been using is this gorgeous thing called Daily Dose of Greek, which if you're trying is actually really incredibly good. But anyway, I think he's doing a verse a day up in John at the moment. I'm trying to play and catch up and have been going through Mark. And last week we just got to Jesus being handed over to Pilate and then Pilate addressing the crowds. And I know this sounds a bit, I don't know what it sounds, a bit funny, but I actually found myself choking up as I read those things and sort of pondered over the words in Greek, and it sort of, you know, because you've got to go slowly when you're trying to translate it, it sort of hit home more, and I just suddenly, how could we humans do such a thing? How could we reject the Son of God? And that's what I want to talk about. Now, for this purpose, that crowd, don't think of them as those people then of that nation or that race or anything. Scrub that. Just as Adam and Eve represented all of humanity when they chose the human way rather than God's way, okay, that crowd, they were humans. The important thing is they were typical humans. They were you and me, and let's not kid ourselves that we would have been any different if we'd been back then. I mean, that's a scary thing, you know. They were human. Even those high priests, the important thing was that they were humans. They were all collectively representing every human being. And I think that sort of makes it all the more awful that it's, oh, why did they then do that we can escape from? Why did we humans, what is our human nature that every one of us would have acted like that and that those typical humans did that? Okay, that's, that hits, okay. So let's zero in on that. Okay, Jesus has been handed over to Pilate. Pilate sort of quizzed him a bit and said, well, are you the king of Jews? And Jesus gives that sort of really weird answer. He says, well, you're saying that. Now, the sort of, if you look a little bit at historical background, well, after this, that makes a lot of sense. Because Herod, the one that was around at that time, you know, that was married to Herodias and cut John the Baptist's head off, that Herod, I mean, there was a whole spate of Herods, so it gets really confusing. Often the Bible just calls them Herod, and you've got to work out which of the Herods. But okay, that Herod. Okay, some years after this, his wife Herodias, guess what, nudged him and said, hey, the emperor's let one of the other rulers call himself king. Why don't you ask the emperor if you can call yourself king? Now that might seem pretty, banal to us. Okay, so he does. He writes to the emperor and says, please, emperor, can I be called king? Yeah, the emperor's response is, deposes him from being tetrarch as he was, and exiles him to Gaul, and replaces him with someone else. So, calling yourself king even when you were one of the rulers of and a puppet under the emperor, got that response. So, you can see why eventually Pilate gave in. He wanted to release Jesus, but there was no way he was going to have a report going back to the emperor that someone who'd been acclaimed as king or called themselves king got, off light from him. So, they had him over a barrel, well and truly. But anyway, sorry, come back to the point. Okay, so Jesus says, well, yeah, you're saying that. But then Pilate has this custom that every Passover the crowd assemble and they ask for a prisoner and he releases them. Now at that stage he's got a bunch of terrorists that are in prison and, well, about to be crucified obviously, that committed, as it says, committed murder in the uprising. So, okay, we can then guess that Barabbas, being sort of the name of that group of terrorists, is the terrorist leader, and he's a murderer. Not our choice of person? Well, let's wait and see. Now, I'm going to say the wordplay gets even worse, because, Pilate says to them, well, who do you want me to release to you? Jesus or Barabbas? But apparently Barabbas' first name was Jesus as well, and Barabbas, actually Barabbas, is son of the Father. So in the things that have been presented to the crowd that's gathered and said, yeah, come on, release a prisoner for us, we want the usual treat, release one. And, I mean, all right, the high priests are stirring up the crowd, but the crowd are doing what they're doing, and the high priests are just doing what human beings in control do. That, in one sense, they've got a choice. Jesus, son of the Father in heaven, or Jesus, son of a human father. You know what I mean? It's God or human, God or human. And when you look at it that way, you think, oops, that's really bad. But the other side of it is the two different characters of the two Jesuses. That, okay, our Jesus, Jesus the Messiah, Jesus the Son of God, has been going around. He's a man of peace. He's a man of love. He's a man that even to the tax gatherers and sinners and that, they've been able to come to him and find forgiveness and find hope in him. He's one that has been, healing the sick, proclaiming the good news of the wonderful mercy of God to anyone who will turn back to him. He's been doing good, casting out evil spirits, even raising the dead. So on one hand, you've got a man of peace, a man who gives life. On the other hand, you've got a terrorist leader, a man who wants to, as they said, rescue the nation from the nasty Romans by violence, a man with blood on his hands, a man who has taken life. So, okay, here is the human dilemma. Do we want God or humans? Do we want a man who gives life, a man of peace? Or do we want a man of war who kills? Well, you know the answer that they give. Barabbas! Give us Barabbas! We want Barabbas! But it doesn't stop there. It actually gets worse. That's sort of humbling enough to think, oh, I'm a human, and those humans did that. Oh, is that really how bad we are? But it gets worse, because Pilate, as we know from the other Gospels, wants to just give Jesus a flogging to please the high priest and then release him. But Pilate makes a bit of a mistake when he says, well, what do you want me to do with this one you call the King of the Jews? Well, we know what they answer. Crucify him! Crucify him! And Pilate says, why? What's he done? And it just says, they just shout all the more, crucify him! Crucify him! Okay. That, goes deeper into our human condition. When God becomes a human being and walks on earth, does nothing but good, healing, helping, telling people that if they will only turn back to God, they will be forgiven and made sons and daughters of God. What is our human reaction? Wipe them out. Get them off the earth. This is our earth. We don't want God on our earth. We don't want God interfering. And it's even worse that, they wanted the most agonising form of execution that they had at the time. Not stone him, not cut his head off, but crucify him. That, that raw human, deep down there, is actually a hatred of God. No, he can't interfere. No, he can't do anything in our world. No, we want this world for ourselves. Get rid of him, and get rid of him with, I'm going to say, extreme prejudice, with hatred and with violence and with torture. Okay. Don't you find that a bit scary to look inside yourself and, oh no, I'm not like. But to know, okay, but I'm a human, they were humans, they were representing me. Maybe deep inside that is us. And sort of the thing that absolutely choked me up was to think, God, they did that to you, and yet you meekly went and let them kill you to save us. That when we were your enemies by choice, when we hated you, us human beings, us human race, even when we were like that, you went through all of that so that we could be forgiven, so that we could be reconciled to you and you could be reconciled to us, and we could be adopted as your sons and daughters, and we could live in you with you in heaven forever. And doesn't it get to you and think, wow, what sort of a God does that? I mean, the sort that's the real God, obviously. The real God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But, you know, it just sort of... yeah, when we humans were so horrid and so horrible, and that God was so good, so forgiving, so loving, and doing so, that to rescue us, yeah, well, all right, gets to me. I hope it gets to you. But okay, let's just jump forward to the present a bit. And before you say, oh, we're not like that, well, I just give you one little example. Might get me into a bit of trouble. But okay, besides Christianity, what's the sort of big religion? Well, Islam. Well, compare the two founders, okay? Jesus again, as we said, the man of peace, the man of love, the giver of life, and the Son of God. The other one, Muhammad, a military leader, a man who killed and oversaw slaughter and killing and murder. Oh, dear, it's a bit like the same thing, isn't it? We've got the giver of life, we've got the taker of life, we've got the Son of God, we've got the Son of a human being. Which do people choose? Well, all right, yes, some do choose Jesus, and that is really, really good. But, 1.4 billion people have chosen the other. And I can say, you see, look, even in our country, where by and large people sort of reject religion altogether, if you slander Jesus, people just say, oh yeah, that's a free world, you can say what you like. You slander Muhammad, and it won't be just the Muslims getting upset. It'll be our own authorities, who might even call them, well, they probably don't call themselves Christians, but our secular authorities, oh, boom, they'll be down on you like a ton of bricks. Okay, who is the leader that the human heart goes after? Not the man of peace, not the giver and author of life, but the man of war and the killer. Okay, that is a bit scary. And probably sort of, like I say, I don't know what more to say except, okay, we need to respond to that. And okay, for you, which way do you respond? Are you going to give your heart to the Son of God, to the one who died for you, to the author and giver of life? Or are you going to be like the crowd and say, get out, we don't want God, don't want you, out, 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 out? Or even worse, give your heart to the man of war. Your choice. But there is an eternal consequence. I mean, there's a consequence right now. If our nation would turn back to the living God, things would be so much better now. But for every individual, eternally, what we choose is going to be what we get.